is this game the Heisman game for Bo Nix or Michael Penix? We are down realistically to 3 people in the Heisman race.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix. And Jaden Daniels has all the stats. He's on a 3-loss team. The problem for him is he's not playing this weekend, whereas Nix and Penix are, and they get to have another shootout against each other. So is this the week where make or break, whoever has the best game and their team wins, potentially snatches victory?
I think, I don't know, maybe I have an unpopular opinion about it, maybe not, but I don't think Michael Penix is going to win the Heisman this year. I think he could have a solid game and win this Pac-12 championship, and I still don't think it's going to happen, just because of the second half performance on the season. Statistically, he's slowed down. I'm not saying he's bad by any stretch. Still had a phenomenal year, continuing to have a phenomenal year. But I don't think he's there. I think what Vegas is showing us is that it's a 2-horse race. I think this is Bo is to kind of lose. He has to have a nice showing this weekend. But if he has a nice showing, 300 yards, couple touchdowns, stays turnover free, I think it's Bo's. With that being said, Jaden Daniels is having an unbelievable statistical year, especially with his legs. That's really what gives him that extra leg over Bo. That's the main argument of all the SEC guys right now. Guys like Paul Feinbaum. That dude is an SEC homer notoriously, and he's absolutely pushing for.
Oh, they've been going at it all day. Apparently, it's him, Feinbaum,
David
Pollock, and someone else is like straight just preaching to the choir for Daniels. And I understand Daniels has amazing stats. They're also leaving him until the late in the fourth quarter to throw like 2 more touchdowns when they're already up 30 points.
And that's the thing. The playing time is not close. I think Bo has 6.5, 7.5 less quarters played, something like that. That really adds up. We saw 4 or 5 games I can think of off the top of my head where Bo was pulled immediately in the third quarter. Midway through the third quarter, we got to see a lot of Ty this year. But yeah, but I get it. It's hard to look at what Jaden Daniels has done, which is also historic, and say he doesn't deserve it, because at the same, if it's anybody else, I'd say, yeah, he does. Absolutely. But then what Bo is doing, we see how valuable it is. Bo has been absolutely incredible. There's not another quarterback in the country I'd want leading this team right now. Someone has to win it. Someone has to lose it. But in my heart, if Oregon wins this weekend, Bo Nix will be holding the Heisman Trophy. That's just my opinion.
I think so, as long as he doesn't do anything that costs us the game. Like, we have to win it, I think, no matter what. But, if he has a game like he did in the first meeting and we win the game, I think that's pretty much wrapped up. Voting has to be in for the Heisman Monday, 9 Eastern, I think.
Yeah, Monday.
By like 9 or 10 a.m. or something like that. They have to have the votes in. So the whole point is Bo has a stage to himself. So unless half the Heisman voters, rather, have already done, which unfortunately a lot of them do, are like submitted their vote for no reason without watching championship week.
All the SEC guys, Paul Feinbaum's already in. Yeah, exactly.
That man's had his vote submitted for weeks.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with the voting. That's why I do agree with people who say we need to take however many people it is, just say 800 voters, and we need to trim that shit down to like 100. The people that actually watch the game.
Yeah, it's tough. You're going to have bias regardless. There's been a prevalent SEC bias in terms of voting all the way back to the BCS, all the way, obviously the AP has their own thing going on. The coaches poll is heavily skewed in terms of the SEC. Now we're looking at Heisman vote. It is what it is. It's known as the premier conference in college football, so they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. It is what it is.
And there is no hate on Jaden Daniels, what he's doing. We know Jaden Daniels. He has shown flashes in the when he was in the Pac-12 against Oregon specifically, unfortunately.
The comparable thing that I saw that people are talking is Well, Bo went to the Pac-12 to chase a Heisman. Well, who went from the Pac-12 to the SEC to chase a Heisman? That's my biggest blunder to that, and that's what I've seen a lot of people talking about as well. Nobody was really screaming for Jaden Daniels to stay in the Pac-12, just like nobody was really screaming for Bo Nix to stay in the SEC when he left. They were like, okay, goodbye. Good riddance. And both of them have resurrected their careers. It's a great story. But I think the biggest thing, if you go off history and you go off the way things should be and are showing they're turning back to, if you look at the polling and the way the committee's been this year, if Bo has any kind of a day and anything near the last Washington game and we win the game, he wins the Heisman as well. If he has an off game, then it's probably Daniels.
I do think it will be Nix, Penix, and Daniels, and maybe Harrison in New York, regardless of winning.
They used to invite like 10 guys, and then it went to like 5, and I think last year it was only like 3 or 4 guys.
No, last year was 5 for one of the first times because they brought in Bennett as like the bonus guy. Normally they only have 3 to 4 lately, but once in a while they'll bring in 5 if it's kind of close or whatever. And it was just because Bennett had 2 undefeated years, so they're like, well, I guess we have to bring him,
Yeah, I think you're looking at 4. And Harrison being the 4th.
And I do think the one thing that if committee members, or not committee members, but if the Heisman voters actually look at it too, is there was a stat went out earlier, which again means whatever you want it to be, is the one thing I hate the most when people talk about records is like they'll say, well, who has Oregon beaten? How many top 25 teams? And so say there's 3 Pac-12 teams ranked right now. Just say. They'll say, well, he beat 2 of those 3 because they didn't play Arizona, for instance. But if you go to the SEC, they'll say, well, there's 3 ranked. Okay, they beat those 3. Oh, they also beat these other 5 that are no longer ranked. So they'll be like, they beat 8. But the Oregon or West Coast teams will never get that credit. That's the bias that people know on the West Coast too much. Unless they're ranked currently, you don't get credit for beating them. But if you're an SEC, oh yeah, you beat all these ranked teams, but they're not ranked anymore. Or why they're ranked, you have no god idea why, like at all. Like it was just mentioned here. Where to go? Yeah, look at the committee to Utah. Yeah, I know Utah won and they dropped them. And someone said there's a little conspiracy about that. Drop Utah out, gives Oregon one less win, even though that was one of the dominating ones. So, it's all conspiracy to a degree, but it happens too many times where we see it. But this is just continuing to be like the 2014 season. Oregon lost to Arizona that year, avenged it in the championship game in defining fashion. Mariota ran away with the Heisman.